food, I'm going to be really screwed.
Well, we'll need experts in transportation.
Well, that's not going to be me, but
That's going to be you.
I can discuss, I can discuss Aristotle, but I don't know. Maybe that'll be useful at that time.
Yeah, maybe it'll be useful.
Yeah. Aristotle didn't like democracy, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. It sort of was like chaos, governance from the bottom up.
All right, we are about a minute away from doing the instructions on how to get people into their breakout rooms. So we should be done here shortly. Done, I mean ready to go. All right, and you guys are good to go.
Good morning. My name is Ed Prince. I'm a council member from the great city of Renton, and it is my honor to be here with this powerhouse panel of legislators to talk about an important topic today, transportation. We're going to start off by doing introductions, and we're going to start off with Representative Davina Dewar.
Thank you so much. My name is Davina Dewar. I'm a representative from the 1st District, which is Bothell, parts of Kirkland, parts of Mountley Terrace, and unincorporated Snohomish County. I currently I'll be serving on the Transportation Committee as well as Environment and Energy and Local Government. And a lot of my work centers around actually the environment and climate change, but I have and am serving currently on Bothell City Council and have been involved in regional committees on transportation. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Davina. Representative Roger Goodman.
Thank you very much, Council Member, and good morning, everyone. I'm Roger Goodman, and I represent the 45th District, including the better parts of Kirkland and Redmond and Sammamish, and also the cities of Woodinville and Duval and the King County areas in between. I am beginning my 8th term, so I'm a little bit long of tooth in the legislature. I'm one of the few lawyers actually in the legislature, so my area of expertise is in criminal and civil justice. I am the only person on this panel who has no involvement in the legislature in transportation issues. So I sort of like, who am I and what am I doing here? But my involvement in transportation really has been being angry with everybody else stuck in traffic on 405. But I actually do have a little bit of background that I'll be able to share with you this morning. So it's good to be here.
Thank you so much. Representative Bill Ramos.
Thank you, Councilmember Prince. Happy to be here today. I'm from the 5th District. Again, my name is Bill Ramos. The 5th District is an interesting district in our area. I call it the east of the east side. So folks think of the east side as, that 405 corridor, Renton, Bellevue, Kirkland, et cetera. Well, this district starts in Issaquah and heads east to the crest of the Cascades at Snoqualmie Pass. It also is one of the largest geographic districts in King County. It heads north from there up through some parts of Sammamish and out through the Snoqualmie Valley, North Bend, Snoqualmie, Carnation, all the way up to Duval to the north, and then heads south down through Maple Valley and Black Diamond almost to Enumclaw. So it's a large geographic district, interesting mix of a lot of 7 different cities and a lot of unincorporated rural King County in between, connecting them all. I'm the vice chair on transportation this year. So we're in transportation. My background, I used to work for the U.S. Department of Transportation, particularly the Federal Transit Administration. So I've got a background there, and I also have a small business consulting business in transportation and transit issues in particular, and particularly in more rural areas. I'm also on the Natural Resource and Rural Development Committee, and also on the Public Safety Committee with Chair Roger Goodman here. So thank you and welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Representative Vandana Slaughter.
Good morning. Thank you, Councilmember Prince. It's so good to see you. And I am really happy to be here. I do have to tell you that my computer has decided to reboot and update during this chamber meeting. So I'm on my phone if the background looks a little different than everyone else. And I represent the 48th District, which is parts of Bellevue, Redmond, Kirkland, Medina, Clyde Hill, the Points communities. And so that sort of includes as well Westlake Sammamish Parkway. And I sit on the Transportation Committee. I was vice chair the last session and the session prior. I still am really engaged and excited about transportation. I know this will be an important issue in the 48th District, particularly with new jobs that will be coming from Amazon, Facebook, and other new companies that have decided to come here. And there's a lot to discuss on that issue. This year is new for me as a chair of higher education. We have renamed that committee in the last 2 years, College and Workforce Development. And I think that many of the issues on workforce also are intertwined with transportation. I've often called transportation a map of our lives, and I truly believe it is so. And I think the way we look at transportation will be fundamentally different as we look into the future. I also sit on environment and energy as well. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you guys so much. Let's get started with the questions. First question I have for you all. We all know that there are tremendous transportation needs statewide and in the central Puget Sound region. However, if the economic recovery remains tentative in 2021, will this be the right time for a statewide transportation funding package?
I'll jump in there if you just want us to jump in.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm looking back historically, interestingly enough, in 2008, when we had the downturn in the economy, we kind of quit building out our roads. We didn't have as much of a traffic problem on the east side here, and that was an economic thing that people weren't all getting to work. And of course, then a few years later here in 2015, 18, we're all jammed up in traffic and wondering why we don't have expanded our roads. Now, if in 2008, if I was brilliant and we wanted people back to work and we could have gotten contracts at a cheaper price, we would have been building all the infrastructure we could at that time to have taken better care of us in our current day. Also, back in 2008, if I had suggested that, people would have said, "What, are you crazy? We don't need those roads right now." So it's that balance of trying to take advantage, I think, of we're going to need these roads. We know that transportation is a basic issue for all of us across this state. I haven't been to one city or county anywhere that hasn't said they want more funding in transportation. So I think it's something we have to look at, that, take advantage when we can. It's also, to me, helps the economy. It's spending money and getting good jobs out there for folks. So it's an economic driver as well. So we need to look at those things, and if we can get those things at a time when the interest rates are cheap and the job market's good, that also gets more projects built for less money, and that's one way to look at it as well.
Well, let me jump in there. Although we might be facing some economic difficulties, although Washington State has been somewhat buffered from the economic effects of the pandemic, the latest revenue projections don't look as dire. We'll have a little bit of a budget crisis, but this is exactly the time we need to make investments in transportation and infrastructure, because it will help grow the economy. It's not spending; it's an investment that's going to yield a big return. The legislature has, even in this logistically difficult time, decided to focus intensely in the upcoming session on growing the economy, a strong economic recovery, on the climate crisis. We're not waiting to address that, and on social equity. And the transportation package, you're going to see coming out of the House chair is going to be releasing his transportation revenue proposal on January 19th. So watch out for that. And it addresses all of those issues, helping to grow our economy strong, not just sort of limping out of this current situation, but creating jobs and building the infrastructure. Also important social equity aspects to this, so that we make investments in the right places and provide employment opportunities to the right people. And then as far as climate, there's going to be very much of a climate focus in terms of retrofitting petroleum fueled vehicles to electrification, like ferries and others, and focusing on multimodal and some carbon revenue as well. So this is exactly the time, and we need it too. We don't have the revenue to build out our transportation system. We've already spent the 15 billion that we appropriated several years ago. So we have to do it anyway. But this is the right time to do it.
Representative Dewar, Slaughter, do you guys want to chime in on this?
I just want to say I think that Roger should also be on the transportation committee. He definitely, I think, covered all the pieces. I don't have much to add to what he's saying. I think you have other questions that perhaps we could dig into, because I thought that was quite eloquent. But yes, we have a revenue shortfall with COVID, and with tolls and ferry fares and other revenue. We have a legal obligation to remove culverts per a Supreme Court decision. It's a $3 billion ask over 10 years. There's a lot of needs in our communities. We want everyone to be working. We want Washington to be moving. And we can talk a little further about this, but we've been asking stakeholders what their thinking is about a transportation package, what it is they would need in that, and how we could address all of the issues Roger mentioned on climate, on economy, on what revenue would be acceptable, for example. And so that's been quite informative for us, at least in the House.
And I agree with everything that's been said. The only thing that I would add is this, the current backlog on preservation and maintenance, which we're not currently able to meet our obligations. And if we don't find a way to put money toward those, we could end up, instead of preserving and maintaining, rebuilding, which is approximately 10 times the cost. So we really need to make sure that we're able to take care of what we have and not spend more later because we didn't invest now.
Great, thanks everyone. Next question. The East Side is expected to experience tremendous growth in the next 5 to 10 years. Specifically, Bellevue is expected to have 10 million new square feet of office space and tens of thousands of new jobs. Knowing what is coming, how do you as East Side legislators feel about supporting new revenue in the transportation package? Will you go to bat for East Side projects?
I'll just say yes. Actually, Representative Slaughter and I kind of represent that corridor right there going through Bellevue, Kirkland. And already projects in the pipeline that, at least in my district and in Representative Slaughter's district, are very enthusiastic about, including the 132nd exchange on 405, and then the 148th on 520, and also a new project we want over 148th for bicycle and pedestrian. But I am thinking though about what the pandemic has done to our behavior in terms of commuting to work. Yes, we have 125 people a day moving here. This is where the jobs are. And so we are going to continue to see a boom in the population. But I don't know, people's behavior might change. We've been able to function maybe even more efficiently with this sort of remote platform. Not that it's going to remain this way when we come out of the pandemic, but I think a lot of behavior will change. And so might be a little bit less pressure on the roads, which will maybe help to compensate for the population increase. This does not mean that we shouldn't move ahead aggressively with finishing the tolling, for instance, from Bellevue down to the 167 interchange, not building more general capacity lanes, but we do have to move ahead, but just be aware that people's behavior might change and we might not see such a huge crush of traffic on the roads.
And I would just mention that I'm bird dogging the 405 expansion between Bellevue and, or actually southern Bothell up to Canyon Park. I was involved in efforts to get that bonding, and it, we need to make sure with the revenue shortfall with tolling, we need to make sure it still moves forward, although it may possibly be delayed because of that revenue shortfall and the inability to bond as much as we need. So that's something that I'm keenly aware of and looking out for.
Yeah, this is Vandana. Thank you so much for that, Davina, because I know that we worked really hard to pass that so that we could continue to have traffic move along the 405. Obviously this is, we've had stakeholder discussions, regarding the changes that are coming. Our economy is growing and we need to be able to give it space to grow, and because everybody benefits in the state. When we think about transportation projects for the East Side, absolutely, we advocate for projects that cities have come to us to ask for, that the chamber has come to us, and that companies have come to us to ask for. And what is the most helpful, and what I found to be really great this year, is that there's been so much alignment between the projects that all of these different sectors have asked for, and they're working together to sort of coordinate what their priorities are. And Roger mentioned a few local priorities because that does definitely affect different East Side cities. City priorities, like Davina mentioned, affect the state and affect movement of goods and people and vehicles in ways that help us be efficient, get us predictably to where we need to go. And a couple of other projects that are in that space are the 520 124th project that will move more people into the Spring District, which will be a place of real growth, particularly as we see Eastlink come online, which was the light rail. So, and there's been a real focus in our work sessions and listening sessions on a multimodal transportation, multimodal options for people, that they have multiple ways to get to where they need to go. So another priority is the East Rail corridor. And that's something that I was really excited about as a Bellevue City Council member, and to see it sort of moving into reality is amazing. And that's like, I believe it's like about 42 miles that goes from, I think, Renton all the way up to Snohomish. And it will allow for really another alternative for people to bike and walk and move along that pathway. And so, so I think that those are certainly priorities that I'm seeing come through in alignment from many different voices on the East Side, and very happy to advocate for that, because it doesn't just help one area, it helps to support our state moving forward.
Again, I would just add to that, free-flowing traffic is just a goal for all of us. It decreases our costs in business in all ways. It makes the world a better place where we can get around to places we need on a on a personal level. And no one's ever complained about well, we got too much road and not enough traffic, right? So we have to look at it that way, that now is the time to do that, to build out. Agree definitely with Rep. Goodman about now is the time. Let's do what we can. We've got some commitments from previous transportation packages that we need to continue on. Some of those projects have slowed down a little bit due to COVID and folks not be able to work as much out in the field and get those things designed and planned. So there's been a little bit of slowdown, but we need to keep going on those to get what we've already proposed, and keep those moving, and look at what else the next ones we need to keep traffic flowing. It's just it's better for business. It's better for everybody.
Great, thanks you guys. We have Bellevue Councilmember Conrad Lee would like the panel to talk about autonomous vehicle technology and how it addresses congestion, energy, and environment.
That sounds like something for Representative Slatter.
Yeah, so autonomous vehicles are definitely, we have a work group that's looking at autonomous vehicles. There are a lot of exciting technology that's coming forward to allow people to drive autonomously. Definitely the technology is moving quickly, and government and how we understand how our roads are used by autonomous vehicles are working really hard to catch up. I mean, Bellevue is a smart city and is planning to be, so I think it will be a place where you'll see this type of technology, but we have to do it carefully and properly and with safety in mind and understanding how to build out infrastructure, which also costs dollars. And certainly congestion and other issues like that are also, whoops, I don't know if are also really important factors. But as we build out this technology, how do we do it in ways that are equitable, that are safe, that address all road users and move us forward so that everyone can be involved in that. And those are questions right now that are being considered by work groups that we have in the legislature that are really diving into that. And we're trying to figure out what policies make sense. But it's not something that's ignored. And I agree, you don't always hear about it every day in the conversation, but these are considerations of infrastructure that we're taking into account as we look forward. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. The pandemic has had a clear impact on traffic patterns. Are any of these changes expected to continue long-term? Have these changes influenced the long-term transportation planning?
Ed, could you repeat that, please, Council Member?
Of course. The pandemic has had a clear impact on traffic patterns. Are any of these changes expected to continue long-term? Have these changes influenced the long-term transportation planning?
That's a great question. And actually, we don't know. I mean, if you're able to give us that feedback, we would love that. Because trying to understand how much people will telecommute versus how much they will travel on roadways, whether or not certain jobs will be coming back, that is something that we're trying desperately to figure out. And so we can make those adjustments in the transportation package and plan. But I do agree that it is a very key question. And it's something that we ask all our stakeholders in listening sessions. What do you think will happen to your industry or to your life or to the way you move in the future? And it's been the pandemic has, I think, revealed the fragility of our economy, but it's also revealed creativity and strength in other ways. And the fact that we're even communicating like this, to have these discussions is reflection of that. How much of that will stay, I think is unknown, but we have to consider that at least some of it will. So absolutely it weighs in, but we just don't know exactly to what amount.
Yeah,
go ahead, Rod.
I just want to repeat what I had said earlier, that clearly our adjustment to the public health crisis has changed our behavior that will continue to a certain extent. I can say my law office is in Pioneer Square in downtown Seattle. So when I drive from Kirkland these days to go to my law office like twice a month, there's nobody on the roads. And from what I understand, in downtown Seattle, the occupancy at this point in those skyscrapers is 8%. So 92% of those offices in downtown Seattle are not occupied. Not that they're not leased, but there's just nobody in them right now. And so that, needless to say, is going to change when we come out of this. But, again, we won't be commuting as much because we will have found these efficiencies. But because the population continues to grow here, there is still an urgency to make investments in transportation. So it will maybe soften the effects because of the more telecommuting, but we can't ignore the reality of population increase here and our need to make transportation investments.
And I would add to that, transportation, there's a lot of, freight moving in and out. There's business, that travel that is required. I don't think that's going to change at all. And telecommuting is really, a good option for, folks that have an office job that can do that. We have a lot of folks, you have to go to your job, so that's not an option. So Yes, I think in the telecommuting and in the office world, there's definitely, there'll be some shifts, but with everything else going on, as Rep. Goodman mentioned, increasing population, I don't see a big decrease in demand for what we need to have in our transportation system. So that's because everybody, I say there's just too many people that have to drive to work. We go to work. Those of us that are lucky enough that don't always have to drive to the place where we work is not all of the commuters that are on the road.
I do have to say though that here on the east side, I mean, I can tell you in the 45th district, Kirkland, Redmond, Woodinville, Sammamish, 48th district, the same thing. We're a high-tech economy, and so we have people working in telecommunications, people working in information technology, even in biosciences, where they don't have to go to a workplace. I believe maybe 60 up to 70% of the people in my district are working from home, and there hasn't been a disruption in their economic sustainability. And so the jobs that are here are those types of high-tech jobs. More people will be moving here and taking those jobs, but they still are capable of working from home. So there's going to be a mix.
I think everybody's covered everything. I don't need to chime in here.
I'm going to move on to our next question. In 2015, the legislature passed the Connecting Washington Transportation Package, which funded many new projects. However, in addition to new needs, there's also growing shortfall in state highway maintenance and preservation funds. Do you believe a transportation revenue package should include a major commitment to maintenance and preservation?
I'll chime in here. Absolutely. Absolutely. Our backlog is deep and growing, and doesn't do us any good to build new infrastructure if we're not taking care of existing. And so I'm hopeful that we can get to work on getting some of these bridges replaced and roads back in good working order. And I think that's shared, if not all, most of the transportation committee. So yeah, I hope there's a dedicated percentage or something along those lines.
If I can tease you a little bit, my conversations with the transportation chair in the House, he did not reveal a number because it's going to be a big announcement on January 19th. But the amount dedicated to Connecting Washington is a small amount compared to what's coming out soon. So there's going to be a significant proposed investment coming up.
Yes, and I'd agree. And just looking at, I mean, as someone said, you have to take care of what we have or we lose it. And so then you lose all that investment. It's not a smart economic move to let your infrastructure deteriorate. So I think that's going to be a focus working on the transportation package is definitely, we heard that loud and clear from all the folks we've talked to, that everybody's realizing we need to maintain what we have as just as high a priority as building the new pieces we need for safety and for traffic and congestion.
Yeah, and I think that people ask us to absolutely to do that when you think about bridges that are not working and functional and safe. People need to feel safe when they travel on our roads. And so that's a really big piece. And then also they want us to rebuild as well in ways that reimagine how the future will work. And so we can have multimodal options as well as novel technology maybe in the future. So it's not a small question or a small challenge, but maintenance and preservation came out overwhelmingly as one place that many stakeholders from all different walks of life and background asked us to consider.
Well, you guys have been great, and we've got time. We've got one last question before we head back to the main stage to hear from Secretary of State Kim Wyman. And that question is, are there possibilities to help cities better fund, either directly or through policy changes, their backlogs of transportation projects?
I'll jump in on that one. Having come from city council position prior to this, that is a definite need I see. And in our part of King County, the east side here, we remember we have a mix. We have city roads, county roads, state roads, and those funding all come from those various sources, and we have to all work together. I've been working with proposed legislation last session and probably introduce it this time to help counties and cities be able to add to their revenue for roads and transportation. That's what they're asking for. All those folks need more funding for transportation within the cities, and then the county roads connecting these cities. So that possibility is coming forward. There's some possibilities on the books right now, laws, but they've been used as much as they can. So I've got what I call my local options package that allows cities to add additional revenue sources for their roads in their cities.
Anyone else want to chime in?
I think Bill did a great job. Bill is leading in the House on this effort, and so he's the right person to ask, actually, to give cities options. But yes, we were listening very much to cities asking for options to be able to do that.
I do think it's also incumbent on the cities, the local jurisdiction, to use their local zoning authority to facilitate housing and other land uses to make transportation work better. So we on the state level certainly will provide incentives and funding, but it's also up to the locals to do the right thing in terms of land use planning.
I guess I would just add one thing, Councilmember Prince, is that we don't know what will happen if there's an infrastructure package with the federal government, but we're watching that closely as well. I don't know how that will help cities at all from the transportation side, but I think that we do need to support our cities. I always call them the frontline responders and frontline government responders. And so it will be important for us to really hear, as Roger says, exactly what the cities need and how can we help them.
Well, you all have been great, and we've got just 1 minute left. Anyone want to make any closing comments before we head back to the main stage?
I would just add, Rep. Goodman mentioned the 19th, we're planning on unveiling the House Democratic transportation package. So be watching for that. We'll be looking for input. We work really hard in trying to listen to everybody and what the needs are and how to fund it. And we've worked really hard to put this together in a way that we think is going to serve all of Washington, and of course, especially us here in King County as well. But transportation is a state issue, and it matters to everybody everywhere. And hopefully we'll take a look at that and get some feedback on that package when it comes out in 2 weeks.
Well, thank you all so much. We could have talked about this for hours. And so I appreciate your time this morning. And I look forward to seeing you all during this very interesting legislative session we're getting ready to embark on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Take care, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.